Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Steve Norman reporting. Authorities in eastern Afghanistan say a uniformed member of the Afghan Special Forces turned his gun on U.S. military personnel, killing 3 of them, wounding 1 other. The incident happened in the volatile Achin district of Nangarhar province. The provincial government spokesman told VOA the assailant was instantly gunned down by American soldiers. Taliban spokesman said the gunman was one of the men who had infiltrated Afghan forces' ranks. AP is reporting that Turkey has formally arrested the country's chairman of Amnesty International as he awaits trial on charges of being a member of a terrorist organization. Turkish news agency did not immediately respond to a request from VOA to confirm the formal arrest of Taner Kilic, who was detained on Tuesday and arrested late Friday. Amnesty International said in a statement Kilic's detention was a mockery of justice and called for his release. There were competing protests in several cities across the United States on Saturday between groups saying that they are protesting Sharia law and groups saying they are protesting discrimination against Muslims. The anti-Sharia law protesters were organized by a group called ACT for America, or ACT for America, a President Donald Trump-aligned organization. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, say ACT is the nation's largest anti-Muslim group. This is VOA News. United States Special Forces are providing technical support to the Philippine military battling to crush Islamic militants in the southern city Marawi. This comes as 13 Filipino Marines were killed in intense urban fighting. Cooperation between the longtime allies, the U.S. and the Philippines, is significant because Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who came to power a year ago, has taken a hostile stance toward Washington and has vowed to eject U.S. military trainers and advisors from the country. United States has once again jumped into the diplomatic spat between Qatar and a group of countries led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt. VOA's Carla Babb has our report.
For Qatar, we want you back among the unity of responsible nations.
President Donald Trump once again slammed the tiny, oil-rich Gulf nation of Qatar for being a, quote, historical funder of terrorism. But Qatar is a strategic U.S. ally, and its Udeid Air Base hosts America's biggest concentration of military personnel in the Middle East. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson urged Qatar to address the terrorist financing concerns and said those blockading Qatar need to stop.
The blockade is hindering U.S. military actions in the region and the campaign against ISIS.
Tillerson appeared to contradict Pentagon statements, claiming counter-Islamic State operations had not been affected by the regional dispute. After Tillerson's remarks, the Pentagon issued a new statement, saying that while operations had not been interrupted or curtailed, the situation is hindering the military's ability for longer-term planning. Carla Babb, VOA News, The Pentagon.
British conservatives have been speaking out against Prime Minister Theresa May's failed election gamble. Sir Craig Oliver was an advisor to former Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron.
I think there'll be a huge post-mortem that will go on for a long time. Why did they make the mistakes that were clearly in the manifesto? Why did they take those gambles? Were they right to follow a strategy of trying to win over these 4 million UKIP voters while alienating liberal conservatives?
Analysts and voters alike are trying to decide if the election, in which no party got an outright parliamentary majority, had rejected Brexit, that's Britain's planned exit from the European Union. Brexit talks with EU negotiators are scheduled to begin in 10 days. EU officials have warned talks should not be delayed and have expressed their fear that the British government, weakened by the election, could result in the talks becoming more complicated. President Trump is preparing to announce new policies toward Cuba that will likely roll back parts of former President Barack Obama's efforts to normalize relations with Havana. Mr. Trump is expected to leave diplomatic relations between Washington and Havana intact.
That's the latest world news from VOA.